January 17, 2026. The Persian Gulf breathes slowly under a gray winter sky. Petty Officer Daniel Mercer stands on the cold steel deck of the destroyer USS Mason, staring across dark water that looks almost black before dawn. The wind smells like salt and diesel fuel. Somewhere beyond the horizon lies Iran. For weeks, rumors have moved through the fleet like quiet ghost missile launches, drone sightings, warnings from Washington. Sailors pretend not to listen. They clean rifles, check radar screens, and drink bitter coffee in silence. But tonight feels different. Mercer adjusts the strap of his helmet and watches the faint orange glow on the horizon where all tankers drift like shadows. He is 26 years old, from Ohio, and until a few months ago the closest he had come to combat was a training exercise in the Pacific. Now every ship in the strike group is at battle stations. The loudspeaker crackles. Condition 1. This is not a drill. The words move through the ship like electricity. Mercer grips the railing. Below him, sailors run across the deck. Missile hatches open with heavy metallic groans. Radar antennas begin turning faster, sweeping the sky. Beside him, his friend Ramirez mutters quietly, "Feels like history about to punch us in the face." Mercer doesn't answer, because he knows Ramirez is right. 2,000 miles away, in Tehran, leaders are making decisions that will change the world before sunrise. The radar operator's voice suddenly breaks through the comm channel, sharp with urgency. Multiple fast contacts, inbound from north. Mercer's stomach tightens. Drones or missiles? No one knows yet. The tactical screen inside the Combat Information Center lights up like a storm of red dots racing across the water. Captain Reeves speaks calmly over the intercom. "Prepare for interception." Mercer moves toward his station, heart hammering but hands steady. Training takes over. Safety off. Eyes scanning the dark sky. The horizon flickers. For a moment, Mercer thinks it's lightning. Then the first missile streaks upward from the deck of another American destroyer, leaving a trail of fire that tears through the night. The sky erupts into motion. Somewhere out there, the war has just begun, and Mercer realizes something terrifying. This battle, this very moment, may decide whether the conflict stays contained or drags half the world into it. Another alarm screams through the ship. Incoming confirmed. Impact in 90 seconds. Mercer looks up. Tiny lights are falling from the sky. Too many, and far too fast. The sky over the Persian Gulf fractures into fire. Petty Officer Daniel Mercer braces himself against the railing as the first American interceptor missile tears upward from the deck of the USS Mason. The launch is violent, an explosion of flame and pressure that shakes the entire ship. Above them, the dark sky becomes a battlefield. Green tracking lights dance across radar displays inside the combat center. On deck, Mercer can only see streaks, thin lines of white fire cutting through the clouds. Somewhere high above, the first intercept happens. A flash, then another. A distant thunderclap rolls across the water as one of the incoming missiles explodes miles overhead. For a brief moment, the sky glows like silent lightning, but the radar still shows more. Too many? Ramirez stands beside Mercer, gripping the rail. How many? Mercer listens to the chatter in his headset. 20, maybe 30, he says quietly. Ramirez exhales slowly. That's not a warning shot. Another interceptor launches from the ship's vertical launch system, blasting into the sky. Across the horizon, other U.S. warships fire their own missiles, their decks flashing like cameras in the night. The entire strike group is fighting now. Above them, fragments of burning metal rain into the ocean. Some incoming missiles are destroyed high in the atmosphere, bursting into silent fireballs. But not all of them. One red marker on Mercer's screen keeps moving. Fast, too fast. The combat center voice cuts in sharply. Leaker inbound. Bearing 095. Mercer's pulse spikes. That means one missile slipped through the defensive net. He looks east. At first, he sees nothing. Then a small white glow appears above the horizon, descending rapidly, like a falling star. But this star is hunting them. The ship's close-in weapon system spins to life beside Mercer. The 6-barrel cannon begins, rotating with a mechanical whine that builds into a furious roar. Brrrt. A stream of glowing tracers tears upward into the night sky. The falling missile grows brighter, closer. The air fills with the smell of burning powder and hot metal. "Come on," Ramirez whispers. The tracers chase the target. For one terrible second, the missile keeps coming. Then, a violent flash rips open the sky just a few thousand feet above the water. The missile explodes in a brilliant fireball, fragments scattering across the dark sea. Mercer exhales for the first time in nearly a minute. But the celebration never comes, because the radar operator's voice suddenly returns, tighter than before. New contacts detected. A pause, then words that make every sailor on the deck freeze. Multiple ballistic launches, confirmed from Iranian mainland. Mercer slowly looks toward the distant horizon. Somewhere beyond that darkness, hundreds of miles away, a new wave of fire is already climbing into the sky. And ballistic missiles don't give you 90 seconds, they give you minutes. The radar screens inside the combat information center glow like a storm of red stars. Petty Officer Daniel Mercer descends the narrow steel ladder into the heart of the ship, boots pounding against metal steps as the alarm continues to howl through the corridors of the USS Mason. Every compartment vibrates with the deep mechanical pulse of engines pushed to full power. Inside the combat center, the air is thick with tension. Dozens of sailors sit before glowing consoles, their faces lit by green radar light. The room feels smaller than usual, crowded with voices, numbers, calculations. Mercer slides into his station. The screen in front of him updates instantly. Ballistic missile tracks, long arcs stretching across the digital map from the Iranian mainland toward the Persian Gulf. He counts quickly. 8, then 10, then more appear. The intercept officer speaks calmly, but Mercer hears the strain beneath the control. Estimated impact window: 7 minutes. 7 minutes. That's all the fleet has. Ballistic missiles travel faster than anything Mercer has ever faced. They climb into the upper atmosphere, then plunge downward at terrifying speeds. If even one gets through, an entire warship could vanish in seconds. Captain Reeves stands behind the operators, hands folded behind his back, eyes locked on the display. Targeting solution. Calculating now, sir. Mercer's fingers move across the console, feeding tracking data into the defense network. Across the fleet, multiple destroyers and cruisers are linking their radar systems together, forming a single defensive web over the strike group. But the missiles are still climbing. Ramirez's voice comes through Mercer's headset from another station. You ever think tonight would be the night? Mercer keeps his eyes on the screen. No. Yeah, Ramirez says quietly. Me neither. Another alert appears. Satellite confirmation. Launch sites near the Iranian coast. More missiles preparing to fire. Mercer feels a chill run down his spine. This isn't retaliation. This is the opening move of a full war. The intercept officer raises his voice. Missiles entering terminal phase in 90 seconds. Captain Reeves finally speaks. Authorize full defensive launch. Above them, on the silent decks of the fleet, dozens of missile hatches open at once. Mercer watches the tracking lines converge. Then the sky outside explodes. Dozens of American interceptor missiles launch in rapid succession, streaking upward like a forest of fire climbing toward space. Inside the combat center, every eye is locked on the radar. The incoming warheads begin descending. Fast, blindingly fast. One by one, the interceptors race toward them. Mercer grips the edge of his console. The first intercept marker flashes, then disappears. A successful hit, but another warhead keeps falling, and it's aimed directly at the center of the fleet. Someone whispers the words no sailor ever wants. The descending warhead burns through the upper atmosphere like a falling sun. Inside the combat information center of the USS Mason, Petty Officer Daniel Mercer watches the red marker plunge toward the center of the fleet formation. The screen flashes with calculation speed, trajectory, intercept windows shrinking second by second. Someone whispers, "Too fast." Ballistic warheads don't drift. They fall like judgment. Captain Reeves leans forward slightly, eyes never leaving the radar display. Final intercept solution, he says calmly. The weapons officer answers immediately. Launching. Above the steel deck, another interceptor missile erupts from the vertical launch system. The shockwave thunders through the ship as the missile rockets upward, climbing at impossible speed. Mercer follows the two markers on his screen, one falling, one rising, closing the distance in silence. The combat center becomes unnaturally quiet. Even the constant hum of machinery feels distant. Everyone watches the moment approach. 5 seconds. 4, 3. Mercer holds his breath. Then, a brilliant white flash appears on the radar display. The falling marker disappears. For a split second, no one moves. Then the intercept officer confirms it. Warhead destroyed. The room exhales, but the relief dies instantly. Another voice cuts through the speakers, sharp with urgency. Multiple new launches detected. Mercer's stomach tightens. How many? Ramirez asks over the headset. The radar operator zooms out the map. More ballistic arcs appear rising from the Iranian mainland, long, deadly curves reaching toward the Persian Gulf. Not 10 this time. Not 20. Dozens. Someone in the room quietly says what everyone is thinking. This is saturation, a tactic designed to overwhelm defenses, fire enough missiles, and eventually something gets through. Captain Reeves studies the screen, silent for a long moment. Then he gives an order that changes everything. Signal the fleet. Defensive posture Bravo. Mercer knows exactly what that means. Ships begin spreading apart across the dark water, breaking formation to reduce the chance that a single strike could destroy multiple vessels. Outside, the Persian Gulf becomes a chessboard of moving warships. But the missiles keep coming. Satellite feeds update again. New launch plumes rise from deeper inside Iran. Mercer zooms the radar farther out. The scale of the attack becomes clear. This isn't just aimed at the fleet. Ballistic trajectories stretch across the region toward bases, airfields, and ports across the Middle East. Ramirez's voice is barely above a whisper. Daniel, this isn't a strike. Mercer stares at the expanding web of red lines. He knows the truth now. The war has just expanded beyond the sea, and somewhere in Iran, more launch crews are already preparing the next wave. But before Mercer can speak, a sudden violent jolt slams through the ship. The lights flicker. Alarms erupt. For a moment, no one inside the Combat Information Center speaks. Petty Officer Daniel. Mercer stares at the radar screen where the friendly signal used to be. The digital marker, representing a warship one of their own has vanished from the formation grid. Just gone. Then the radio explodes with frantic transmissions. Mayday, Mayday, this is Porter. We've taken a hit. Missile impact amidships. Mercer recognizes the name instantly. USS Porter, a destroyer sailing less than 10 miles from them. The voice on the radio is shaking, struggling to remain professional. Massive damage. Fire in engineering. We're losing power. The combat center erupts into motion. Damage reports flood the communication channels. Radar operators attempt to re-establish tracking. Officers shout coordinates. Captain Reeves turns to the tactical officer. Visual confirmation. Mercer switches to the external drone feed. The image appears on his screen. At first, it's just darkness and ocean. Then the camera stabilizes. A burning ship emerges through thick smoke. Flames pour from the center of the destroyer's hull, lighting the surrounding water with a terrible orange glow. A jagged hole splits the deck where the missile struck. Mercer feels the air leave his lungs. Sailors run across the damaged deck, tiny figures fighting a fire that looks impossible to contain. Ramirez's voice comes quietly over the headset. Jesus! Another radio call breaks through the chaos, fire spreading to fuel lines. We need assistance immediately. Captain Reeves doesn't hesitate. Dispatch rescue teams. Signal nearby vessels. Outside, helicopters begin lifting off from the flight decks of nearby ships, their rotors cutting through the smoke-filled night. Small rescue boats launch into the dark water. But the radar screen shows something even worse. The missile attack isn't over. New incoming tracks continue racing toward the fleet. Mercer watches another red marker descend. This time, it's not targeting the formation. It's heading toward the burning Porter. Someone shouts across the combat center. They're hitting the damaged ship. Mercer understands instantly. The enemy knows exactly what they're doing. Strike once to cripple. Strike again to finish. The intercept officer quickly calculates the trajectory. But the numbers are brutal. The warhead will reach the target in less than 40 seconds. And defensive missiles take time to launch. Mercer grips his console, heart hammering. On the drone feed, sailors are still running across the burning deck of the Porter. They have no idea another missile is already falling toward them from space. Ramirez whispers in disbelief. They're not even giving them a chance. Mercer stares at the countdown timer flashing on his screen. 30 seconds. The fleet races to intercept. But deep down, Mercer knows the terrible truth. They might not be fast enough. The countdown on Mercer's screen flashes red. 30 seconds. Inside the Combat Information Center of the USS Mason, every operator is locked on the same descending marker, the ballistic warhead dropping toward the burning USS Porter. Petty Officer Daniel Mercer leans closer to his console, fingers flying across the keyboard as he feeds targeting data into the ship's defense system. Intercept solution ready, he says. The weapons officer doesn't hesitate. Launch. Above them, another interceptor missile erupts from the destroyer's vertical launch system. The blast rattles the ship like distant thunder. Mercer tracks the missile climbing into the sky. But the math is cruel. The warhead is already deep in its descent. Time to intercept, Ramirez asks through the headset. Mercer swallows. 15 seconds. The radar shows the two markers racing toward each other. Outside, the burning Porter drifts in the dark sea, flames roaring through the shattered center of the ship. Firefighting crews struggle across the deck, unaware that death is dropping from the sky. Mercer watches the distance shrink. 10 seconds. 8. 6. The interceptor climbs faster, pushing its engines beyond normal limits. For a moment, it looks like the timing might work. Then the radar updates again. The warhead changes course slightly. A maneuver, small but enough. Mercer's heart sinks. Intercept window slipping, he calls. The room tightens with silent dread. The interceptor still tries to reach it. For seconds. 3. The two markers nearly touch. Then the warhead plunges past. Mercer whispers, "No." On the drone feed, the burning Porter fills the screen. Then the world erupts. A blinding explosion tears through the destroyer's stern. The missile strikes with unimaginable force, ripping open the damaged hull and sending a tower of fire hundreds of feet into the air. The shockwave spreads across the water. On Mercer's screen, the friendly signal disappears completely. No engine power, no radar return, just empty ocean. For several seconds, no one inside the combat center moves. Ramirez finally breaks the silence. Did anyone make it? No one answers, because no one knows. Captain Reeves closes his eyes for a brief moment before speaking again. Continue tracking incoming threats. Duty first, grief later. Mercer forces himself back to the radar display. More ballistic arcs are still descending across the region, some aimed at military bases, others at shipping lanes. The war is expanding by the minute. Then a new alert flashes across Mercer's console. Satellite reconnaissance. Not missile launches this time. Aircraft. Dozens of fast-moving contacts lifting off from Iranian airbases along the coast. Fighter jets. Ramirez reads the numbers and goes silent. Mercer understands why. Missiles were only the opening strike. Now the air war is beginning, and the American fleet is still burning. The burning wreck of the USS Porter still smolders on the dark water when the next threat appears. Inside the Combat Information Center of the USS Mason, Petty Officer Daniel. Mercer stares at the radar display as new contacts surge across the screen. Fast, low, dozens of them. The tactical officer leans forward. Aircraft confirmed. Mercer zooms in. The shapes resolve into tight formations racing south over the Persian Gulf. Iranian fighters. Their flight paths are aggressive directly toward the American fleet. Ramirez exhales slowly over the headset. So now they're coming to finish the job. Mercer doesn't answer, because the numbers keep growing. Satellite data updates again. Airbases along the Iranian coast have launched multiple squadrons interceptors, strike fighters, and electronic warfare aircraft. This is no raid. It's a coordinated assault. Captain Reeves studies the screen for only a moment before issuing new orders. Alert the carrier group. Launch combat air patrol. Hundreds of miles away, the flight deck of the American carrier erupts into motion. Engines scream to life as U.S. Navy fighters are hurled into the sky by catapults, racing to intercept the incoming wave. But the enemy jets are already moving fast. Mercer calculates the intercept window. Enemy aircraft entering engagement range in 9 minutes. 9 minutes to prepare. Outside, the fleet continues to spread across the dark sea. Warships maneuvering carefully to avoid becoming clustered targets. Helicopters still circle above the area where the Porter vanished, searching for survivors among floating debris. Mercer forces himself not to look at that part of the radar. Focus on the living. The combat center receives the first radio call from the carrier's air wing. Viper Squadron airborne. Vector us to the targets. Mercer feeds the coordinates into the network. Moments later, the American fighters appear on the radar, racing north at supersonic speed. Two forces are now rushing toward each other over the empty Gulf. Ramirez chuckles nervously. Guess the sky's about to get crowded. Mercer finally glances at the external camera feed. The eastern horizon is beginning to glow faintly with morning light. Dawn is coming. And with it, the first aerial battle of the war. Suddenly, the radar system chirps again. Mercer leans forward. Something else has appeared. Not aircraft. Smaller. Lower. Dozens of fast-moving dots skimming just above the surface of the sea. He checks the speed. Too slow for missiles. Too fast for boats. His stomach tightens as he realizes what they are. Attack drones. Wave after wave of them. Ramirez reads the screen and groans softly. You've got to be kidding me. Mercer stares at the radar. Fighters in the sky. Ballistic missiles overhead. Drone swarms approaching at sea level. The fleet isn't fighting one battle. It's fighting 3 at the same time. And dawn hasn't even arrived yet. Dawn breaks slowly over the Persian Gulf. The first pale light spreads across the water, revealing a battlefield that only hours ago had been silent ocean. Petty Officer Daniel Mercer watches the radar screen as the swarm approaches. Dozens of small contacts skim just above the surface of the sea, moving in tight clusters toward the American fleet. Their speed is steady, mechanical. Attack drones. Cheap, disposable, deadly. Ramirez exhales beside him. They're trying to overwhelm everything. Mercer nods silently. Missiles force the fleet to look up. Fighter jets demand attention in the sky. And now the drones creep in low, where radar struggles to see them clearly. 3 layers of attack. Perfectly timed. The tactical officer issues orders quickly. All ships engage drone targets at range. Guns and short-range interceptors authorized. Outside, the fleet begins to answer. The destroyer's deck guns thunder to life. Rapid bursts of cannon fire echo across the water as streams of tracer rounds tear through the morning air. The sea ahead erupts with splashes and explosions where drones are struck mid-flight. Some spin wildly before crashing into the ocean, but many keep coming. Mercer switches to the forward camera feed. Through the thin morning fog, the first drones become visible, small, dark shapes skimming only a few feet above the waves. Their engines buzz like angry insects, and there are far more than expected. Drone count now 70 plus, Mercer reports. Ramirez whistles softly. Someone's been building an army. Suddenly the combat center receives another transmission. Viper squadron engaging hostile aircraft. Mercer glances at the upper radar display. 2 groups of fighter jets have finally met in the sky above the Gulf. American fighters streak south while Iranian jets push north. The first missile launches appear instantly, tiny flashes racing across the radar. The air battle has begun, but Mercer barely has time to process it, because the drones are now dangerously close. The closest one is less than 3 miles away. Captain Reeves gives a new order. Activate electronic countermeasures. Across the fleet, powerful jamming systems roar to life, flooding the airwaves with interference designed to confuse the drones. Navigation systems. Some immediately begin drifting off course. Others drop into the water, but many continue flying straight, autonomous, pre-programmed. Mercer feels a cold realization settle in his chest. These drones don't need operators anymore. They only need targets. The deck guns fire again, shredding another group of incoming machines. But the radar still shows dozens remaining. And now they're spreading out, each one choosing a different ship. Ramirez leans closer to the screen. That one's heading straight for us. Mercer sees it. A single drone racing toward the USS Mason at nearly 200 miles per hour. Too small for missiles. Too fast for comfort. The gun crews swing their weapons toward it.